Hey everybody, it's Chainsaw Reacts and welcome to the 9th episode of the Chainsaw Reacts podcast. Today's podcast will be covering 3 topics, and those topics are: number 1, X-Men Days of Future Past Road Cut will have an additional 17 minutes of footage we have not seen yet, so I'm very excited to get to that topic. Number 2 will be a hypothetical, and number 3 will be a hypothetical, but the second topic, as you can see in the description with the time start, with all of them will have time starts so you can skip to a particular topic. The second topic will be talking about and hypothetical, who will die in Age of Ultron. Now this is talking about heroes, not about Ultron or a villain dying in Age of Ultron. I'm talking about an hypothetical of who could possibly die in Age of Ultron. And number 3, another hypothetical, we're going to switch completely to DC and talk about the hypothetical, will the DC Cinematic Universe succeed? So let's not waste any time, guys. Let's jump into our first topic, which I'm really excited to talk about, which is X-Men Days of Future Past Rogue Cut. When this was first announced, I was just so happy because we heard all these rumors, we heard about behind the scenes, we heard about basically scenes that involved Rogue and her involved in the film in some sort of way, and eventually her entire part, except for her tiny cameo in basically the last scene of X-Men Days of Future Past when Logan, Wolverine, fixed the timeline, we got to see Rogue. But there was a whole entire section that was not shown in the film at all because her entire scenes were cut from the film entirely. They worked around it and made the film as it is. I mean, it's an amazing film, but the fact that they've announced a Rogue Cut, which was rumored for a while to have 10, 11 minutes of extra footage, and Bryan Singer tweeted out last night as I'm recording this podcast, stating that Rogue Cut X-Men Days of Future Past will be featuring 17 plus minutes. Basically means it could be 18 minutes, I'm not sure, or more, but 17 confirmed minutes. And he also added a few things I wanted to add in as well. Essentially what I've been reading and what people have been stating in reports and on basically blogs and all this stuff and discussing about this confirmation, stating that mostly what we'll be seeing, which is new footage, will of course be Rogue scenes, but also feature scenes. There's a particular scene in the film that really starts off this Rogue scene. I've read this through a script where there was a scene where they had to cut it because they cut out Rogue entirely. There's a scene after Kitty Pryde was cut by Wolverine because he saw Stryker and he's freaking out and he cuts her in the arm and she's bleeding out pretty badly. There's a particular scene in the future where Iceman, Magneto, and Professor X are all having a discussion, and they're talking about how she can't go much longer, and they're telling, Bobby, they called him Bobby, even though he's Iceman, saying, we cannot wake Wolverine up. If we wake Wolverine up, I had to glimpse into the past. If we wake him up now, our future will be worse than it is now. Essentially, it could be apocalypse, I don't know. But that was kind of what Professor X said. However, that scene ends, if you remember that particular scene from the film. What happens is that scene continues actually talking about how Iceman knows where Rogue is. And then from then on, Iceman, Magneto, and Professor X from the future go and save Rogue, and that's how Rogue gets introduced into the film. And she's actually there, and at one point she takes over, basically holding on to Wolverine in the past, taking over Kitty Pryde's spot with her powers, able to basically take Kitty Pryde's powers, her, sending them people into their past bodies and able to hold on to Wolverine. And there's a particular scene where Wolverine actually loses his mind again, like where he first saw Stryker and was moving in and out from past and present. He doesn't know what's going on. That actually happens again during the whole big scene of the stadium falling on the White House. That whole entire stadium falling. Apparently he slips through it again, and Rogue is seen there handling with that. And I'm not sure what else happens, but this 17 extra minutes to me is beautiful. I cannot wait for this because, in my personal opinion, I love the original cast and I love them to death, but Rogue, in my personal opinion, was misused a lot. At least her powers were. I mean, obviously, she was involved in the first film a lot, but really, at the end of the day, her powers were really weakened down, and I think that's because they wanted to focus more on Professor X and Wolverine, and that's because of the popularity. I think that if the popularity went to another set of characters rather than Wolverine or Professor X or Magneto, where they got most of the attention and most of the screen time essentially, then the focus would be essentially more on other characters. And I think that's what they're trying to do with X-Men Apocalypse and trying to bring in these new actors and basically try to rewrite how these characters are being developed and all that. But this road cut really shows that they're willing to go back and really fix a lot of the issues they had. And Simon Kinberg, who of course wrote X-Men Days of Future Past, I believe he wrote for First Class as well, and I think he also wrote for X-Men The Last Stand. I can't remember, but I know for a fact that he wrote for Days of Future Past, and he's writing for the upcoming reboot of Fantastic Four. He stated in an interview talking about how he learned a very hard lesson about the way he wrote Rogue in Days of Future Past, because he's like, we had to cut her out of the film, and I learned a very hard lesson about writing, because we could have obviously written her in to where she's a part of the integral story and not a side plot, which basically it is, having to go save her and bring her back to the place and basically help keep Wolverine in the past. So Simon Kinberg learned a lot from that situation, and I hope that he did learn well, because that was a very bad mistake in my personal opinion. Keeping Rogue should have been something they should have thought of, because, I understand they had to introduce these other characters, but at the end of the day, there was a lot of scenes, future scenes, that were cut out, to where Bishop barely had any lines, Sunspot barely had any lines, and a couple other characters just wasn't really involved. I mean, obviously, Colossus, in the final cut of the film, had one line, Mystique. Mystique. That was his only word he said. And apparently that whole entire scene where they're all in the future, at the very beginning, where they're all having a discussion about Kitty's powers, and basically this is how they're telling the audience, through telling Professor X and Magneto and Storm and Wolverine, the rest of them are telling them about how they send Bishop's body, his mind, into his past body to let the mutants know in the past 2 days, in the back 2 days before, to move out because the Sentinels are coming. Basically explaining that so they can tell the audience. However, I'm not sure. I don't think this will be included in the Rogue cut. It's probably on a deleted scene. However, I don't have the access to watch all of the deleted scenes that are available. But there's apparently a whole entire section where there's a lot of more talks, where Storm has a whole discussion, and there's more talking from apparently Colossus and Iceman, and there's more discussion. Instead, there's only a few lines ever being said. So the reason why I'm rambling going on about this is because I love this film so much because of the original cast, and I cannot wait for this Rogue cut. I cannot wait for her to actually be involved in this film and actually see her, because that cameo was cool and all, because obviously if you didn't look deep enough into the basically the production and all this stuff and the scripts and basically the stuff they cut, in your mindset, into the regular fan of the X-Men who watched the first X-Men films and watched First Class and is now seeing Days of Future Past on their DVD player or in the movie theater for the first time when it came out, seeing Rogue, like, hey, there's Rogue, oh my god, she must have died in the future, right? And they fixed it so she's alive. No, she was alive the whole time, they just cut her out. So it's just really, really crazy, but I'm so glad that they announced this, and hopefully, this is my, my stupid hope, and I know some fans of the X-Men films don't agree, but I really hope that they continue with some sort of way of including the original cast, the future timeline involved in these films some way or another, because I love that cast so much. I grew up with that cast, and hearing that they're going to go back and fix it and add 17 plus minutes to a film that was so successful just the way it is, but now they're going to fix it, well, essentially add in something that they removed, that's a beautiful thing, and I'm so glad they did. So more power to them, and hoping this will inspire them to keep the original cast, the future timeline cast, involved in some way, or having an entire film dedicated to them. I don't know, but that'd be beautiful to hear that, but who knows? Just waiting for the announcement. Fingers crossed. Anyways, let's continue on, guys, with the second topic, which is the hypothetical. The last two topics are hypothetical. We're going to move on to who will die in Age of Ultron. Now, this is a big thing. Now, obviously, we can speculate all day about, is Ultron going to die? Is this other character who's kind of a villain or something like this going to die? My main focus is going to be about the heroes and the side characters that are with the Avengers, helping the Avengers. Because if you look at it, and this is not really me thinking off the top of my head, because this topic was inspired, I have to give credit where credit is due, to AMC Movie Talk, that basically had a viewer question being sent in, and their question was to the AMC Movie crew about, is Marvel afraid of killing off their heroes? And I do have to agree to some extent. Marvel has an issue with killing off main characters, or characters that are involved, like superheroes. They have an issue with killing them off, really. If they kill off somebody in Age of Ultron, they may bring them back in some weird way for Infinity War. But, let's think logically here. If someone's going to die in Age of Ultron, who would it be and why would it be? And the better question is, would they be dead forever, or would there be some magical difference way where they really didn't die, they're in another dimension and they saved them later or something? But We can talk all day about Ultron. I mean, quickly on Ultron, I think if Ultron's going to die, I think they need to kill him off for good, because Thanos will be popping up in Infinity War Part 1 and 2. They split that into 2 films. Okay, Thanos is taking up 2 films. We don't need Ultron still alive somewhere. I think he needs to die, essentially. But for the hero side, that's a harder tale. Now, there are some characters that are obviously off limits, because they have solo movies, they're involved in films coming up, so we really only have a few to talk about. So, who is off limits, per se? Who is officially off limits that we know for a fact that is not going to die in Age of Ultron, because they're confirmed for future films? Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, Hawkeye, Black Widow, okay, and that's about it as far as main Avengers, because the rest of the Avengers are the Hulk, Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, and the Vision. Now, we can obviously, now they've said that Mark Ruffalo is signed on up into Infinity War Part 1 or 2, I believe, both. I'm assuming it counts for both, or whatever. So he's signed up till 2019. Does not mean that he'll stay around for then. They could obviously kill off the Hulk some weird way. Just kill Banner. Like when he's Banner, they kill him and he's not the Hulk and he dies. Or he is the Hulk and he just dies. They could obviously kill him off. He's not confirmed for Civil War Captain America. He's not confirmed for that right now. So he could bite the dust. Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, now obviously they are with Ultron. We can see in the trailers, we know that they are backing Ultron. Now there's the whole thing where they flip, and they actually do help out fighting Ultron and his army of bots. But that doesn't mean that one of them will not die, because there's been other rumors that Scarlet Witch, not so much Quicksilver, but Scarlet Witch might be involved in the Doctor Strange film, because basically Doctor Strange and her powers in the cinematic Marvel universe are kind of similar. Probably not the same way that they produce their powers, but they are basically performing the same type of idea, performing the same type of thing, because they're going to think of some very unique way to make Doctor Strange not completely 100% magical like in the comic books, because the cinematic universe has not really delved into this. Now, they could completely surprise us and make Doctor Strange 100% magic, and now everything we've learned so far from the cinematic universe with super soldiers and gamma radiation, which essentially is just a freak accident, and then a billionaire building robot suits where he can get into them and shoot lasers and rockets and all that nonsense and fly, and a figure, a god from Asgardian, and obviously an assassin who was brainwashed in Black Widow, and a archer essentially that can take out more things than he should, Hawkeye. So it's going to be interesting to see that. So Scarlet Witch might be involved there, but if I had to pick in the Vision, I mean, I think they're personally going to keep the Vision around, because Paul Bettany has been performing as Jarvis, and I think he'll continue to be Jarvis too. But essentially, I think Jarvis and Vision are going to be coexisting at the same time. I don't think Vision's going to die. I think if I had to pick who was going to die, and I'll give you my reason why, and I'll give you my theories. Now, obviously, this goes in kind of not spoilers, because I've not seen the film. I'm just going based off of the trailers. And so when you go based off the trailers and you think logically, now obviously, if you don't want to hear any talk about Avengers Age of Ultron, skip ahead now. Skip to the DC part, because I'll be discussing what I'm seeing in the trailers. I have nothing to back this up except for what I've seen in trailers. Not just one, but multiple trailers. I personally believe Quicksilver is going to die. I personally believe that, because when you look at the trailers and you see he's a part of the film, of course, because he's backing Ultron, of course, but Scarlet Witch, his sister, is screaming in the teaser trailer. She's down on her knees screaming at the top of her lungs. Why would she do that? Unless she's getting hurt by something. Unless Ultron is doing something to her to make her, like, she's screaming because she's seeing visions, because Ultron flipped her magic thing where she can make cause we see where the Hulk is being basically manipulated, because he has the red in his eyes, kind of like where Black Widow's getting the red in her eyes in one of the trailers, where Scarlet Witch can make you see things that are not real. So obviously Ultron might have thought of some way to flip it to where she's seeing things, and that's why she's screaming. But there's another trailer where she does the same thing, where she's screaming in another area. So that's essentially referencing to maybe her brother dies, or maybe her brother is, basically knocked out, or I don't know. I mean, there's no telling, but that's my theory, because most of the Avengers are confirmed for future Phase 3 films. We have no idea at the end of this film who is going to be on whose side. Vision, Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, we don't know. And the Hulk, I think they're going to keep the Hulk because it's such a famous character. But they could completely throw us under the bus and just kill the Hulk. It'd be like the most fucking crazy shit ever. I cursed, but I think if you really want to look at analyzing the trailers, Quicksilver is probably going to bite the dust. Doesn't mean he's going to die permanently, or maybe Ultron throws him into the sky and he goes out of the atmosphere. I don't know, or lands on another planet. I don't know. There's no telling what's going to happen, because Ultron, I think, is going to be the most badass villain we've ever had to see on screen from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, you know, be the biggest loop ever, the biggest freaking loop ever. They won't do this because obviously they announced the next film, Civil War. They kill off Captain America. In Captain America Civil War is Bucky or is Falcon. That would be the biggest freaking loop of all time. But they won't do that because Chris Evans is signed on, and they know they want to use Chris Evans till the bitter end, till he is officially out of the contract because he wants out. But that'd be the biggest loop ever. But if I had to throw my money on it, I'm going to bet my money on Quicksilver is going to bite the dust because of the way they presented the trailers. Look at The Amazing Spider-Man 2 for a perfect example. There's particular, they've released so many trailers for that film, of course, but there's particular parts where you see in the trailers where Andrew Garfield is in the Spider-Man costume and he's crying his eyes out dearly. We know it's not over Uncle Ben. Uncle Ben's dead. He's been dead since the last film. Are they going to kill off Aunt May? Highly unlikely, but it might be a really interesting plot point if they killed her off. So it's got to be Gwen Stacy, and they killed her off in a pretty horrific way. I didn't see the film, but I saw the particular part where she, neck snap. So I think from learning from what Sony did, I'm not saying Marvel is stupid, because I think that Marvel is smarter than what Sony did with their trailers. I think Marvel is smarter with their trailers and what they're trying to. What they really don't want to show, because obviously we saw the little thing at the last Avengers trailer, like the full Avengers trailer, the last shot of the Vision. They don't want to show anything of the Vision. There's things they don't want to show, and I think they're going to hide that off pretty well. So going back to the topic, as I'm rambling off here, but I mean, essentially we have to look at the trailers. That's what I've been focusing on. I think if they kill off a character, they have to keep him killed off for good. You know, it's not going to be a major character. Well, also, I thought about this too. I'm dumb as crap. Rhodey's in the film as well. War Machine is in the film, and he's not confirmed for anything else. If they would have said Rhodey's coming back for Civil War, they probably would have said something by now, but I doubt it. But War Machine might die, but then again, they've been revealing toys and stuff and talking about how War Machine's figure is being revealed with other figures from the Age of Ultron, like, action figures and stuff like that. So War Machine might be in the film, but he might die. He might be the one that dies. Who knows? I mean, if he dies, that's a big kick to Tony Stark. I mean, think about it. Hypothetical here, because I have nothing to base this on. Rhodey dies from Ultron. Ultron himself kills Rhodey, right? It's not an Ultron bot. It's Ultron himself. He kills Rhodey. That is basically the creator, Robert Downey Jr., Tony Stark, the creator, created a monster, essentially, and the monster kills his best friend. That would be really cold, but it would be very powerful for the film. It'd be one of those things, a plot point in the hypothetical, because like I said, have nothing to base this on, just a hypothetical. If in the middle of the film this happens, that would be a really big kicker for Tony Stark to say, we have to stop this thing. It might kill Pepper next, even though Pepper's not in the film. Or I don't know, who knows? I don't think so, though, because they haven't said anything. So that'd be interesting to see that whole side, but I think if they're going to kill off a character, it's probably going to be Quicksilver, or it could be War Machine at this point, Rhodey. I mean, I think if they kill off Rhodey, it's a big thing for Tony because he created Ultron, so he is now more motivated than ever to stop Ultron because he's losing the people he loves. His best friend dies from Ultron. That's a big story plot point that no one expects, but, the people that hypotheticals like me might already see it coming, but Who knows? Maybe they'll throw us for a loop and no one dies, and then everybody dies in not Age of Ultron. Everyone dies in Infinity War, and no one dies in Age of Ultron. That'd be a big loop too, because like, hey, no one's died yet, and we're into Phase 3, and no one's died. Infinity War Part 1, 5 people die. Infinity War Part 2, 10 people die. Holy shit. That would be a monster, but a monster twist, really, it would be. So, there you have that. Okay, guys. Let's finish off with the last topic. Probably have another short Chainsaw Reacts podcast. But, I don't like making these. I don't want to make a podcast over an hour long and shit. So, I'm not going to do that. But anyways, guys, let's get off to the last topic. It's another hypothetical. We just have to look at the big picture here and not look at individual films. But we'll talk about a few individual films. Will the DC Cinematic Universe succeed? Question mark. Will it succeed? Who knows? Let's get into a hypothetical here. Now, everyone, obviously, we have nothing really to base the cinematic universe off of except for Man of Steel. That is the only thing we can base our thoughts about where the DC Cinematic Universe is going to go. Is it going to succeed? Because we've not seen any footage from anything. We've seen the little Comic-Con footage of Batman staring up at Superman in the sky, but that's nothing. That's just a little teaser they've shown. But will it succeed? And I think with so far, if we don't look at casting, because essentially Warner Brothers has been casting people that, besides Henry Cavill at the end of the day, like superhero-wise, a lot of the casting has been criticized heavily. Not a little bit, not a decent amount, heavily been criticized. Jesse Eisenberg cast as Lex Luthor, heavy criticized, very heavy. Like people were like rioting, not literally rioting, but rioting on, the message forums and all that crap. Ben Affleck announces Batman. More rioting, more heavy criticism. People like, oh my god, why would they do that? I mean, and then some people would say, well, obviously he looks like Bruce Wayne, but Batman? Hell no. Oh my god, no. But there's that. Now, Gal Gadot, whatever her name is, Wonder Woman, cast as Wonder Woman, more heavy criticism once again. And I personally believe, if you're going to ask for my personal opinion, which I'm going to give it anyways, you don't have to ask people. You can't hear me. This is an audio. This is recorded. This is not live. I'm dumb as crap, am I? I think Warner Brothers is going to surprise us. I think Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice is going to be a huge success, and people are not expecting this film to be as big as it is. I think it's going to be popular not because it's Batman fighting Superman. I think it's going to be more popular because of the fact that it's a successful film, and it actually is. It actually is good, and Warner Brothers surprises us. Also, another casting that people have an issue with is Ray Parker, I believe. I don't know his entire name. I'm not looking this up. I'm just kind of winging this thing. Cyborg, who's playing in the cinematic DC universe. He's only been in, as far as I know, one other film. And on his IMDb, I guess, is the other film and Batman v Superman. So he's only has 2 pieces of work so far, and one of them's not even out yet until another year. So that's another thing where people didn't really criticize it to the extent of Gal being cast as Wonder Woman, Ben Affleck cast as Batman, and Jesse Eisenberg cast as Lex Luthor. So, but if you really look into him, he hasn't done much at all. Jason Momoa as Aquaman, I think has been well received in the account of it, if you're comparing it to the receiving of Ben Affleck and Gal and Jesse Eisenberg. I mean, I think that Jason Momoa, I mean, seeing that picture, like going back to that picture, oh my god, that was a beautiful picture of him looking like as Aquaman. And I think that really calmed people down. But I mean, if you want to get more acceptance with the casting side of it, not looking at the story of it, which we'll get to in a second, I mean, we have to see what Wonder Woman looks like, not the sepia tone, not that editing crap. We want to see what her costume looks like in color, what it actually looks like, not in black and white, not in, tinted and it looks different. The colors are not these are not the actual colors. It's just edited photo. They really need to go all out and actually show us what the hell her costume looks like, the color. We need to see it instead of this, crappy editing you did there, sir. The story side of it, I think what's going to make the cinematic universe for DC well received on top of the casting, because the casting, I mean, it's been criticized to death, but I mean, we have to look at it in a bigger picture. I mean, is the DC cinematic universe going to succeed based on casting? If that's the case, no. what's going to make the film succeed in the sense of the eyes of people that want the DC Cinematic Universe to succeed or have doubts like some people. I really don't have doubts per se, but it's a doubt on a lot of people's mind, and sometimes I wonder if DC is putting way too many people in Dawn of Justice, but then again, it's called Dawn of Justice, so it's kind of setting up the Justice League film, which comes out the year after it, so I guess I can't complain that this is how they're doing it. They're doing it the opposite way of Marvel, so they want to take that route, sir. But what's going to make the cinematic DC films succeed is the storytelling, is the story. It has nothing to do, really, with the casting. If they look the part, if they act the part, that's fine. But if the story is just meaningless, it's not going to succeed. Batman v Superman will not succeed to the extent of what they want it to succeed. If Batman v Superman is only 2 hours of Batman and Superman fighting, there is an audience for that, but that is not a story. That is basically them just fighting for 2 hours, and there's no stopping. It's just fighting nonstop. That's not going to make the DC Cinematic Universe succeed. If Suicide Squad, which comes out later that year after Batman v Superman, if Suicide Squad is basically 2 hours of the team just running around shooting people constantly, and they're killing other people and they're killing other villains and blah blah blah, they're just, that's all. There's no downtime, there's no story, they're just running around killing people. There's an audience for it, but it's not going to succeed. If the Wonder Woman solo film is Wonder Woman for 2 hours, just talking, to people or fighting, other people or something like that for 2 hours, and there's no downtime, there's no story, it's just fight. There's an audience once again, but it's not going to succeed. There has to be a few factors that has to go into it. The directing and the direction of the films have to be, somewhat decent. The directing of these films does not have to be perfect. It'd be great, but it doesn't have to be perfect. We need to have people that come in with these films and realizes that what makes the comic books and what makes the Justice League a very unique set of characters and a very unique team and a very unique story is the fact that they have to look at the comic books for inspiration and take ideas and transform them into film and make it work and make it cinematic in a sense. The dialogue, the story, and the way the story is presented has to work. It has to make to regular people that don't read the comic books, they have to understand what the hell is going on screen. I think, now I know some people do not like Marvel and DC comparisons, but you have to, because they're doing the same damn thing, because DC's doing what Marvel's doing now. So we have to make that comparison simply because DC wants to succeed like Marvel, so they have to basically look what Marvel's doing. Marvel has made it a way to take what is in the comic books, which to some people, to a lot of the moviegoers that maybe don't read comic books, would not understand, and can transform it and transfer it into a cinematic 2-hour film or something, and basically make it available for people to understand it. For the regular moviegoer who does not know what the hell a comic book is and doesn't know what this story is, like the Captain America the Winter Soldier, if they transcribed Captain America the Winter Soldier comic book series or comic book, whatever, I don't know if it was more than one issue, onto the screen and no changes, just exactly as it is in the comic book, transferred to the cinematic screen, people would not understand it. So what I'm trying to say is, DC has to understand that not everybody's going to understand certain things about certain characters. They're not going to understand to the extent of Martian Manhunter, and not the certain extent if they decide to bring in Hawkgirl, or they're not going to understand completely the backstory of Wonder Woman. They have to make it to where it's interesting enough, but also it's easy enough for people to understand and for people to be interested in the characters. If you make a 2.5-hour film called Justice League Part 1, and we have the 7 Justice League members, and they're fighting whoever, Doomsday, Darkseid, whoever, Brainiac, whoever, if they're fighting him, we have to understand, we have to be involved in the film, we have to connect to the characters, we have to connect to the story, we have to understand where the story is going, we have to understand the plot. If one of these things is missing in one of the early cinematic DC films, if one of the major things that makes a film succeed is lacking severely, it's going to hurt their chances of making the DC Cinematic Universe succeed. Is one failed film from the DC Cinematic Universe going to completely ruin it? No. But if they are lazy at any given point and allow a couple of films, like 3 or 4 films in a row, to be severely lacking in a particular thing, people will drop off and not care. People will not watch the films at all. No, not everybody, I understand that. If dialogue is not as great as it was in Man of Steel, now there was obviously some dialogue in Man of Steel, not perfection, but if the dialogue, let's say, in Batman v Superman, Suicide Squad, Justice League Part 1, and I think Wonder Woman comes afterwards, or whatever comes before, the next few films we're going to get, starting from Batman v Superman, the dialogue is not... Some of the dialogue is cheesy and crappy, and people are like, I don't believe this for a second. I don't believe that, that this is actually happening. I mean, it just doesn't seem believable to me. People will check out and not care. People will not watch it. I mean, it's not everybody. You're not going to lose a huge variety of audiences, but if you allow certain things in film that makes film succeed lack and severely just hurt, and you're not putting a lot of time and effort into it, the DC Cinematic Universe will crumble and fall. And I don't want that. I want the DC Cinematic Universe to succeed because I love the DC characters. I love the Marvel characters. I want both of them to succeed, and both of them have their days to shine and their movies to succeed, and to basically build these universes that are so awesome. And the differences from Marvel and DC are going to be great, and the similarities are great too. So I'm hoping that when DC is going to be moving forward with pushing all these characters into this film to launch the Justice League and have these solo films, I'm hoping they look at what Marvel has done successfully with their films and will transfer them into their cinematic universe, and make the DC Cinematic Universe not copy word by word what Marvel is doing, but understand what Marvel is doing well, and take that and basically apply that to their films so they can succeed as well. Not saying they should steal story ideas. I'm not saying they should steal characters. I'm saying they need to see that Marvel is taking these comic books that are very successful and that are, their own, that there are comic books, and transfer them and transform them into a cinematic 2-hour film, and not copy word by word, but also make it the best damn film they can. Make it the best damn Batman v Superman film. Make it the damn best Wonder Woman film. Make it the damn best Justice League film. That's the first thing they need to focus on. Do not think you need to transfer comic book to film. Some people might say that, but the majority of the audiences will not understand if you transfer comic book to film. Transfer what can be used in the comic book to the film, but take some changes, make it cinematic, and make it work. I know I rambled there for a while, guys, but that's what happens when I kind of just wing this thing, because I do have some worries for the DC Cinematic Universe, but literally at the end of the day, I have nothing to worry about, because we've not seen anything. All we've seen is one solo film, Man of Steel, and that's all we've seen. Until we see Batman v Superman, until we see Suicide Squad, until we eventually get the Justice League Part 1, eventually when we get to that film, the Justice League, when it's all 7 Justice League members, if that film fails, then we have an issue. Then we have a major problem, because there's a Justice League Part 2 and solo films in between and after. So, we have a lot to think about at that point if that film fails. But I have high hopes, and hopefully we will get an amazing cinematic universe of DC characters, and I cannot wait. So, thank you guys for listening to the podcast. Sorry guys if I rambled. That's what happens. It just happens that way. So anyways, guys, thank you guys for listening to the podcast. Peace out.